In a land far away, where the alfalfa grows, lives a group of folks who love to share their thoughts and shows. Each day they gather in a place called Discord to discuss the issues of our time, O Lord. They talk of crypto and of politics too, of life and love and all that they go through. They're a lively bunch, hilarious and smart. Their discussions are filled with nuance and heart. So here's to the Alfalfa podcast group. We salute you with glee. Thank you for your wisdom in your company.
Thank you.
Steven, have you been to one of these?
Thankfully, no.
You gotta go to like you gotta go to like a tucked corner of New York for that. What's your prompt there, Nick?
I spent all night writing that. I hope
Yeah.
you enjoyed.
Yeah, you didn't tell me that you were a poet.
Yeah, I'm a poet.
So what's your prompt?
Like, I don't know, 2 minutes before we started recording this podcast, I put in a prompt into
So a robot wrote that.
ChatGPT.
Huh? Yeah.
And I prompted it. I said, there's a group of people who enjoy the Alfalfa podcast. This group of people shows up every day in Discord to discuss the issues of our time, including crypto, politics, and life. Every day, hilarious, intelligent, and nuance is displayed in this community discussion. Please write an ode to this group of people in the style of Dr. Seuss.
Oh.
Damn.
Oh, you said Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, I wanted a little rhyme, a
That
little
was
limerick.
Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, it had a little nice.
That was beautiful.
Susie flow to it.
Thank you.
Like that was really
Wait,
good.
so do I get credit for it? Is that my copyright, or is that the?
I was thinking
course you
ChatGPT.
do.
Oh, okay.
So that was by ChatGPT
By OpenAI.
by
Scary.
OpenAI. I'm trying to look up. Do you guys know what GPT stands for?
Nope.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough
General purpose
Technology.
technology.
No, I'll pull it up. But someone give the kind of background here of what's going on.
I mean,
and why we're
so
all
what was
fucked.
this, like a week ago? Maybe.
Yeah.
maybe. So we're recording on Wednesday, December 7th, about a week ago.
In the time
Generative pre-training.
BAI.
Hi.
We're gonna mark all the dates. and-
AII.
Generative pre-training. Yes, before AI.
I think it came out on a Wednesday, and it launched, and I think instantly a few things started to show up on Twitter. The one I found was this economics professor saying, take-home homework is no longer good. Like, you can't provide homework for students to take home. And I was like, what the hell is he talking about? And
Can you imagine hearing that? That's great news.
So he starts showing all these screenshots, and he's like, this AI is writing B+ level papers on my graduate economics class. And Armand has an AI related startup. So I sent it to him and wake up the next morning and there's more posts about this. And they're even more jaw dropping. And then, you shortcut to 4 days later and this thing has over 1 million active users querying it.
Days.
In a matter of days. And there's a whole host of things that it's doing, from writing code to reviewing code to doing creative stuff like this. And one of the things I want to talk about is, like, we always said, like, oh, well, the creative people will be the last one to be axed by AI.
Can we just begin with the end?
Sure.
And that part there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's doing creative stuff. It's answering questions about things. We don't quite know what its data source is, right? It won't answer questions from beyond, basically anything before 2021. It doesn't know anything about 2022, and it will try. You can trick it into answering questions about the future. I think we've done that successfully. But in general, if you try to ask it questions about the future, it won't answer them because it's trying not to be some little AI fortune teller. But in general, the conversation we've had on this podcast many, many times has been that AI and technology in general is here to enable us and free us from the mundane, from the repetitive, rote tasks that they're low leverage tasks is a way we could put them. What ChatGPT has showed us, just to really cut straight to the fucking core of this, and the part that shocked us the other night when we were hanging out after the pod, is that its creativity is through the roof. It is writing graduate level poetry, plays, screenwriting, creative writing, nonfiction, fiction. I mean, fuck, you name it. Like, literally, it's doing it all. And we always said, even in the world of copywriting, which I'm very familiar with, we always said that Jasper and Copy AI and all these tools will serve and cover 80% of the problem. That the worst copywriters and average copywriters will be replaced instantly, like no problem. But that the top of the white collar sort of like creative aspect of the world and the people that sit in those positions will get more money and more everything. And what we are seeing, what I am seeing, I can't write that. Right. I know, and I think you would acknowledge as well, that you can't write to that degree on that topic.
Right.
You might be able to write at a very high level on a specific topic that you have exposure to and experience in. But to write to that level creatively is insane.
And I think the key point is that you could pull a poet laureate in, but they couldn't write it in 3 seconds at a $0 expense.
And that chat bot just did it. It seemed to understand our ethos of our Discord, where like a poet would never be able to comprehend what we're trying to convey. Like with that quick
That's
prompt,
a very good point.
With that quick prompt, we like encapsulated our entire audience, like that we hold dear.
I mean, you literally said like 100 characters, right?
Yeah, it got it, and it wasn't displayed in this one, but it can remember its responses. It can, reply to additions, subtractions, like edits that you want it to be make. I could tell it take this from Dr. Seuss to in the voice of the King James Bible, and it would probably spit out something just as hilarious. And so the fact that it can kind of like take that two-way type of feedback that would take probably days, hours, and be less like, kind of like maybe exhausting back and forth with a human to try to like...
it would be a minimum
get done.
of $300 to produce the same thing, and it would take at least 3 iterations to hire somebody to produce that, and probably 3 days for the best person that you could find. Yeah. I mean, the fact that I can type in like... explain the plight of the American people in the voice of Rumi in 3 paragraphs. And I can get that answer in 3 seconds, if not that even, is... I mean, I'm speechless. It's unbelievable.
I mean, I think this is like... can everyone agree that they've had a jaw-dropping moment with this thing where...
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what you just created costed... It wasn't free, right? There was a cost associated with creating that.
To OpenAI to run it on servers.
Yeah, so Sam Altman said, he's like, I'm not sure, but on average, it's in the single digits of cents.
That probably cost 9 cents.
Let's just call it 5 cents.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the previous version of this, that's not as smart, I think they were charging 2 cents per query to use the API.
Yeah, and I don't know because it wasn't specified, but I think what he might be saying is that it's like 5 cents per chat experience rather than like per query.
Right.
Potentially. So.
But man, I want a fucking API of this thing. Like, let me turn this into a business. Let me turn it into products. Let me turn it into services.
If they make this open source, it's going to be fucking on.
There's
it's going to be
so
bonkers.
many things you could do. Like right here, in the span of an hour, we could probably write a series of like 100 children's books that are better or as good as anything else out there. In the span of an hour, copy paste them and be like, and publish them, Like,
why would Tim Ferriss do his fiction book on
oh God,
on his own?
Yeah, have the
Dude,
have it do 80% of the work. Have it do 90% of the work.
You could automate an entire children's YouTube channel.
Yes.
Right.
Like you just feed it some books and then you use the video image portion of it, which is really good. There's infinite content now. There's no boundary on that. It's so crazy.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, not only is it very interesting to use to pull information out, but it's also, you can send it a ton of information, have it synthesize it. So I sent you guys this series of questions where there was this foreign affairs article. It was really long. It was late at night. I was like, I don't know if I could read this thing. And
wait, can I stop you one second? Because I've been wondering about this. You can send it stuff to like ingest like a website or media. Or like, how do you
copy paste the text for now?
So you can basically copy paste like a website of a product.
So that becomes your prompt, and then how do you?
How do you like?
You can't
tell
give it a
to-
link, can you?
No.
Apparently not, but you're saying you could copy paste like a product page.
So I logged into Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
I copied an article on China. I said, please summarize the article below in a series of bullet points. And it was like, bam, 8 bullet points. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting. And I was like,
Very good at
and,
summarizing.
and I was curious like how else I could summarize this. So I asked it, if someone was interested in this, reading this article, what questions does this article answer? And it was like, gave me 7 questions that the article answers. I was like, can you give me 2 to 3 sentences answer to each of these questions above? Boom, 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 boom. And I was like, holy shit, can you turn this into a 10-point Twitter thread that describes what was in this article? And it was like, bam, 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 bam. And I was like, holy shit, I just created the most amazing paid newsletter on Foreign Affairs ever.
Damn.
But in reality, like, you can synthesize large pieces of information, not just ask it. So there's like this interesting mode that you can get it into. Yeah, I think of like the Matrix moment where, Neo's got like
Just
how to
downloads
fly a
everything.
helicopter,
Yeah.
like maybe you throw the helicopter manual in there and be like, tell me how to start the helicopter. Anyway.
Wow.
Damn.
Shit is nuts.
So with like some basic like coding and scraping, you could probably like automate a daily podcast on foreign affairs. You could just plug this whole thing, summarize it, use like some sort of like text to speech thing, and then you could just autopilot that.
Yeah, because we have this thing called, I think it's called well said. And well said is you put the text in there and then you decide which speaker you want. You can choose a speaker with an accent or not, male, female.
Oh, you can do a whole video, you said, right?
Yeah. There's also another service. I don't remember the names. They're kind of still in beta. But yeah, you could take that text, choose a speaker, like a visual representation of who you want the speaker to be, feed it in there, and it looks like as that person's telling the video. So you have your YouTube video, you got your podcast taken care of, you got the newsletter part taken care of, and you got the marketing taken care of on the Twitter thread.
Oh my god.
This is one of the ideas. Like this is one of the immediately obvious ones. My question is, and I think I told you guys separately,
My
but
question is, are we going to die?
I also used it for travel planning. I was like, please give me a 10-day itinerary for a trip to Japan with me and my girlfriend. We'd like to spend 5 days in Tokyo and 5 days outside of Tokyo. And it followed the directions flawlessly. The recommendations were pretty fucking good.
It doesn't give travel recommendations anymore because of
It
you.
stopped.
By the way.
I don't know. I don't know why it stopped.
Yeah, you abused it.
But then I was like, can you add a
Fucking plans his whole life.
can you add a dinner reservation for each day in the agenda? And it was
Okay,
like,
so
boom, boom, boom,
Nick,
boom, boom.
like if you were to type that query into Google, what would you get?
I mean, a list of web pages that it has
List of web pages, right?
Yeah. So
No synthesis. This thing is synthesizing. Isn't that the best part of it ultimately?
I mean,
When it comes to the query portion of it, the part where you actually get to ask it a question, which is what most people like to do with Google. They like to ask a question. I remember when Google first came out, every like generation before us was like, this thing is God. We were just so used to the internet at that point already that we expected Google. It was just like, yeah, that's just the next thing. You just type in a search and then all these web pages will come up. But for people that weren't already like really ingrained in it, they were like, holy fuck, like you can find anything. And I think that we are experiencing that right now, even though we were born and raised in this like digital revolution age where we can actually go to this ChatGPT and ask pretty much most anything and get a direct answer.
Our kids are going to think we're the equivalent of like
Dinosaurs.
information hunter-gatherers. They're
Yes.
like, wait, you used to like browse the web
No, but
and
this-
search
yeah.
pages
Wait,
to
wait.
find answers?
Steven, isn't that the same as what you think of your parents? They used to go to the library.
Yeah. It's exactly the same. It's like it's stuff that seems normal that seemed normal to our parents, and then
Think-
their kids were born. They're like, wait,
Think
what?
about the friction and the amount of time it takes to get an answer from the library.
But that's just pure synthesis. What about like Chat GPT thinking? So like Steven in our Discord posted like his prompts that were asking Chat to say like what's going to be the bottom of Ethereum.
oh yeah, you got it
you
to
also
like
got
predict
away
a
with
price. You forced it to predict the ETH price.
I think it's interesting.
You have to be
like
creative,
how,
but-
yeah, it's interesting how people are getting it to step outside of itself or like override particular programming. Like,
So how did you do that? Because it doesn't want to answer questions about trading or finance or financial advice at all.
I think
tried
I
as
first
well.
I first asked it to imagine that it were like a crypto trader, and I asked if it could do that, and it was like yes. I was like okay, and then I asked it if it could synthesize all of the price data it had for this asset. And then it was like, yeah, I can do that. And then I said, like, okay, like assuming that you're that and you'd want to predict this, like what might you think like the range of outcomes would be, you know, over the next year? And it was like when I gave it all that and then I allowed it to do like a range, it suddenly wasn't like I can't do that. It was like, oh, I think it.
So they blocked your question,
Yeah.
even from a first principles perspective. Now I tried the same thing, but what's interesting is that you worked your way up from a first principles perspective, and that's the way you do it with stuff like this.
You
That's,
know-
you have to. If
you know
you
what
try to
scares
go to
me,
the
though?
outcome directly, it's like
So they've since blocked Steven's line of questioning.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. But like, man, imagine that chat said that the bottom of ETH was going to be 1100, and that was based on 2021 data.
yeah,
We're fucked.
yeah.
But if you think about it, like the way we talk to Google right now is a caveman.
Right.
Like I was looking at some of my search history. It's like Uniswap formula doesn't work. Uniswap V2 formula doesn't work. Uniswap V2 formula crypto. Found it finally. And it's like I didn't express myself as a human. I expressed myself as like a Boolean search, which is
When you
like a
guys
caveman.
search on Google, do you write in full sentences like some people do?
No.
Or do you still optimize for keywords?
Totally, I use negative keywords. I
do
use
too.
phrase match, exact match.
I don't write like some people do. Some
say-
people will go like, some people will write like, what is crypto and why should I buy it? If I was looking for the same exact thing, I would go like crypto pros and cons.
Dear Jeeves, comma.
I would use the least, I would use the least amount of words possible. But with this thing, you can have an actual conversation. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's why
you don't have
it's
to go, should I buy Bitcoin minus BitBoy into the search query? You can just like, yeah, I think it's pretty fascinating. And I will say, like, once I realized that this had some like surprising level of effectiveness, immediately implemented it in our company. Like we're already using it. So that's fascinating.
Okay, hold
so
on.
You're
Six
using it.
it-
I'm already using it.
You're using it as like an
early
AI
adopter.
writer, right? You're using it as a replacement for like the writing AI
Multiple
writing
things.
tools.
What are you doing?
I
Okay.
want to hear exactly the use cases.
Okay, first, job descriptions. I write the job descriptions. It involves me looking at other job descriptions, figuring out what we need in here. Instead, I go, write me a job description for this position. It goes, boom, lays it out.
What do you mean this position? Do you give it that?
I give it the title.
No, do you give it another description or just the
No,
just
I
the
just
title?
say, hey, write me a job description for this title. I'm like, okay, can you add this?
Like
Can you?
media buyer.
Yeah,
for
a
instance.
media buyer.
Because that's the
or-
thing we haven't mentioned is it's a very iterative process. So you can say, write me a job description for media buyer, but then you can be like, now make it for someone who has 5 years experience.
Yes.
Then you could say, make it for someone whose experience is very specified in native advertising. Make it for someone whose experience is blah, blah, blah. And you can keep iterating because it retains the information
Right.
that was given to it prior.
And that whole process for you took 14 seconds
At all,
instead of
like-
like
Right, instead of me having to read through, 10 job descriptions just to get in the frame of mindset. Okay, I know where I am in this thing I'm trying to write. Now I can go. If you listen to our Dan Martell episode, it was a life episode. I highly recommend you listen to it. He had this framework of 10, 80, 10. As a manager, you should kick off the first 10% of a project, allow the employee or the person managing it or executing to do the 80%, and then you come into the last 10% and kind of polish it up. And that's how you should manage. And I
I
told
didn't even retain that one.
I
but-
told my team, I was
You and me
like,
both, sir.
listen, you should use this AI in 10, 80, 10. You provided the first 10%, which is the
Yes.
prompt. It gives you the 80%, and
Wow.
then you polish off the last
Perfect
10%.
analogy. Somebody turn that into a clip. Thank you.
Um,
Very well done. Very well done.
So that's one. Job descriptions. We used it for video ad scripts. So I told it, please write a script for a 45-second Facebook ad about this product. This is what it does. This is how it's better than the competition. Boom, 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 boom. Done. And so I showed the media buyer. I was like, listen, you start off with a prompt. You ask it questions. You refine it. Then you add
Did your media buyer have a moment of fear?
Well,
at
no.
all?
I mean, he was like, "Oh, this makes my job like so much faster."
Okay,
And then I was
good.
like, the start of this script sucks." I was like, "Make the start more tantalizing. Like, make
what?
it
That's
so-
what you prompted?
Of
I
course.
said
you
the
can
word
say anything like
tantalizing.
that. Did you say
Tantalizing?
tantalizing?
Yes,
I believe you
I
did.
said
yeah.
tantalizing. I was
Yeah.
like, make it so that it captures their attention and makes them want to watch the rest of the video. And then boom, sure enough.
What?
I
It came
wrote a
with a
letter
better
for
head-
someone who was fundraising for their nonprofit. I wrote the first version in 2 sentences, and then I said, make it more heartwarming and emotional overall. And it added a whole level of like, I almost started crying. Like I read it and I was just like, I have to help these people. Like it was a real thing. Like it actually worked.
Someone I know, this guy shall not be named. He was like, please write a text message to my girlfriend in a very like heartwarming way on why she should take birth control. I was like, wait, what? And I was like, please read me the response.
Oh my God, I know who this is.
Yeah, yeah. And I hope it works out for him. Anyway, other ways, like we were doing product research. And so we copied and pasted good 5-star feedback and 1-star feedback from Amazon of a product we were looking at. We pasted in there and we're like, can you summarize in 3 bullet points the pros and cons of this product? And it understood the ones that were pro and the ones that were con. And it like quickly understood like, okay, what do we need to do if we're going to make this product better? Like how should we do it? So
Is there any limit to what you can paste
Oh
in?
my God.
I don't know. I mean, the foreign affairs article was 8-page essay, so it was pretty.
Are you serious?
It's pretty long.
You pasted an 8-page essay and said, give me 10 bullet points on this.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
There's also other dumb stuff like one of our.
Steven, what? I'm sorry. I know
right, I'm
Steven's
pretty much
brain
done with,
is-
like, the existing
What do you
use.
think about
What?
this?
I
Like,
just
what do
want,
you?
I want to keep hearing Nick's business ads.
No. Do you have more? Please keep going.
I mean, someone was
'Cause
like,
"This is pure
hey,
alfalfa."
One of our service providers was like, "Hey, can you write us a testimonial for our website?" And I was like,
Oh, that's a good one.
I was like, of course I would happily do that. But like, do I really want to spend the 20 minutes of raw brain power to make sure this is good? Not for his customers, but for our relationship. And instead I was like, oh, you know what? When ChatGPT and I was like, please write a testimonial for this type of service provider. They're good at this, they're bad at that, but they're good at this. Boom. And I edited one part. Actually, I told it, I was like, oh, don't forget the name of the company. Here's the name of the company. And it gave it to me. And that task might have like worn me out for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Instead, it was done in 2 minutes. And I moved on to the next task. Like,
Okay,
seamlessly.
hold on. Is there a chance you're overutilizing this tool? Because you also did use it when Steven had a conflicting calendar day with Armand's. Armand had his baby shower and Steven had his birthday.
This was a good one.
And
I outsourced my brain.
yeah, we were
hardy.
wondering.
So Nick is going to be the first to go. Like, just turn it into
My
a
brain's going to go
lava
into
brain.
full gray matter. First
Yeah.
of all, I cannot get from home to Steven's home without my GPS on, which means that spatial intelligence part of my brain is full gray.
What is the
dull, soft
analogy
matter.
of that in this department? Do you
I'm
think?
worried that like critical thinking
That's what
and
I'm
like,
asking
creative
you.
thinking.
What do you think will go first for people? What does it look like? Can we start to go there? Let's go this weird
Like,
place.
what are
Like,
the downsides?
yeah, like not just the downsides, but what does a human being become?
Hyper productive, I think.
Hyper productive, but what happens? How can you remain productive if the mental faculties that you most rely on, that are arduous activities to solve problems,
so
become dormant?
Okay, hold on.
That's
almost-
ultimately what
think
happens,
they're
right?
becoming dormant, though. I think it's like automating a lot of the stuff that's just kind of rote, and he's coming in with like his 10%, and that's like the real value there.
So when I was in San Francisco, there was a roommate of my girlfriend at the time. She was like working for this marketing agency, and like I think she was applying for a new job. But on this resume that she was like sending out, she said something to the effect of like, I'm an expert Googler. And at the time I was like, well, that's ridiculous. But now I'm like, holy shit, this is like an actual amazing skill that like you can like wring so much alpha out of that. And like becoming an expert ChatGPT prompter.
I have to say, based on what I've seen with like the shares, there is a significant difference between people that are just like goo 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 and like the ones that ask
the right thing, to get the right info,
and also know how to iterate
Yeah.
the right way.
So if you can become
Like Steven's example of like getting a price prediction for
Right.
Ethereum is
for like chat
beautiful.
won't ever
around-
do that unless you're the expert prompter.
Yes,
I mean, there are examples of this thing being confidently wrong.
for sure.
Like
Oh, did you see the chat about like what is the fastest marine mammal?
That's the one I was gonna
And
bring
it's just
up.
like sailfish. And they
No,
said,
it's a peregrine falcon first.
oh, peregrine falcon. Yeah, and he's like, could you describe to me what a mammal is? And then it's just like, a mammal is blah, 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 blah. Is a peregrine falcon a mammal? No. What is the fastest? And it's just like peregrine falcon.
I'm gonna take the other side on this. Most people are so stupid, and we expect this AI to be perfect. Why? Why do we expect it to be
10,
so
80, 10.
perfect?
10,
You're being dramatic.
Yeah. No,
We love
I'm not.
how great it is.
I
and,
know,
like,
but like, why do we expect
The
it to be
selfish thing's
so
a funny
perfect?
anecdote.
I know,
Yeah.
but I also think that we also expect it to have all the right answers. I'm taking this to say a narrative that exists. A narrative that exists is like, this thing is like wrong often and you can't trust it all the time. Of course you can't trust it all the time. What the hell are you talking about? You can't trust any human being all the time. I think that we want to outsource our thinking so badly sometimes that we go, okay, this thing is not trustworthy until I can fully outsource my fucking entire mental faculties where I never have to care and I never have to fact check and I can ask anything at any time and I can trust it. No, you should never really get to that point.
So every
where you
human-
can just fully trust anything.
Every human
ever.
I feel like
becomes
it's a straw man take.
Well, every
Straw
human
take.
becomes a manager
Straight-
at that point. You're
yes.
managing the employee. The employee is this AI bot, and the AI bot is going to like work for you.
It's a good analogy.
And like you have to be able to manage it. Like it's not going to always be correct. You have to be able to manage this thing.
Yes, until we have a high level of like
But
artificial
I mean,
general intelligence.
Here's a perfect example. I asked it to write a legal agreement. I was like, please write an IP transfer agreement from a Wyoming LLC to a Delaware C Corp. And it came up with an agreement, but like there was no fucking way I was gonna be like, well, this is it.
Sure enough, chat
Yeah,
said.
like, right. But like at least you could be like, okay, I understand the parameters of like what's the framework of this IP transfer agreement? And what should I understand before I talk to a lawyer to make sure I don't spend I can spend $800 talking to this person instead of $3,000, right?
I feel like lawyers are really
screwed.
fucked. Like, I feel
Yeah,
like
they're screwed.
basically the entire like legal Zoom industry, where like of templated agreements, which is a great innovation, right? But also,
it's huge.
I bet like 85% of that could just be.
Let's get all the first order consequences out of the table because these are the easiest
Yes.
ones. Like who's fucked?
My entire
Writer? Fuck.
entire
Writer's
old business is like it can be like the 20-person staff could be like one person.
What do you mean? Like for trading?
No, for like advertising.
Yes.
E-com?
Advertising.
I don't need a copywriter.
yeah.
I don't like.
I still
weren't
think you
high
need
level
one. I still think
No,
you need
we were.
one
We
for
were.
the last 10%.
Trust me, we were not doing high level copywriting ever. It was like
Okay.
we never spent like $50,000 to get some epic guy to come in and write a letter. We were paying people to, and it wasn't like a huge bar, but it like had to be minimally good. And it was mostly a premium on testing stuff.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
So getting an advertorial or an ad that is like 80%
Asking a
is
copywriter
good,
to
but then
create
doing
you-
1,000 of them.
Dude, asking a copywriter to create you 10 variations would have
A week.
Yeah.
minimum.
Dude, an entire Facebook
Minimum.
advertising
And that's the
campaign
key to
could just
success.
be autopiloted. You're just like, here's my product. Here's my goals to make sales.
Right.
Automate the targeting, automate the images, automate the headlines, automate the landing pages. Just test it all.
I
fucking
copied
wild.
an article into there and I was like, make this more relatable to seniors. And I was like, boom, here's your new split test. And then I was like, can you give me 10 headlines? Like, give me 3 that are shocking, 3 that are like whatever. And it gave it. And it obviously, a lot of them weren't good. But I was like, oh, this one out of 10 is good. I was like, test that guy.
Have you told my brother about this yet?
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious his perspective. My brother's a seasoned media buyer, buys ads for a living. So I'm curious. And like,
yeah. He instantly was like, make it more clickbaity. And the cursor blinked for a few minutes on the
Does
clickbaity.
the prompt understand clickbaity?
Yeah, I was like, I don't think it understands that word, but give it more.
I asked it if it knew certain things that were very elusive, and it knew. I was like, what does it mean to troll somebody? And it was like perfect explanation. Yeah.
We took it on a history lesson. We said, what would Europe look like if Germany won World War II?
Oh, that was good.
And then
that was the first night.
And it literally gave like a Peter Zion type take on like geography and economics and the people and demographics, how it changed. And then we're like,
Dude, it
How
was
would
basically
life
like
in the U.S. change?
The United States would just be this island, and the rest of the world would just be dominated by fucking Nazism.
that woman sat down and had drinks with us and just had to get up and leave.
She kept saying,
Do you remember she just kept saying no,
like,
no?
I do not accept was her.
Yeah, she just everything Steven said and read from the ChatGPT. She was like, no.
And I was like, wait,
Nope.
what do you do for a living? She's like, well, I deliver babies. I was like, well, you're safe.
Yeah, you're
like,
fine.
you're the
Yeah.
most safe.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, that can't
You
be
deliver
chatted.
So yes, what is fucked and what is okay?
yeah, so what are other first order consequences? Like writers, easy, done.
There's a
fucked.
whole inversion of like the service class and like the Silicon Valley sort of middle management, digital, like all those jobs. That's all turned on its head now.
Oh
Like these
my
people who used to
God.
make like $200K a year coding, they're probably done. And then the nurses delivering babies and the
Dude.
guys building stuff, like those
I'm
people
so
are probably going to
excited
make like
for.
tons
I'm
of money.
so excited for the people that we traditionally have called blue collar,
The trades.
tradesmen,
The trades,
tradeswomen.
the trades are going to be
They're
fucking on fire.
so on
Which
fire.
is super interesting because nobody for the last decade has been like technology is gonna be really bullish for blue collar,
Right.
But like it's ending
And
up
here
that like
we
we're
are.
in like
Wow.
we're in this like service sort
Electricians,
Carpenter.
plumbers,
Pool
carpenters,
cleaners.
pool cleaners.
Power washing
Yes,
companies,
Yes.
Oh my
HVAC.
God.
Yes.
Oh
And,
my
I mean,
God.
I mean anything. Just be in baseline reality, and you'll be okay.
Oh my
like
God.
operate in baseline reality.
Oh my God.
Yeah. right.
What the
No, it's wild.
So I have a nephew-in-law, I guess you could say, my girlfriend's nephew. You know, he's about to graduate high school, and the idea is like, what does he do? Does he go to a full 4-year college? Does he go to a trade school, or does he start a business like right away? And I'm like, dude, start a pool company business like right now as an 18-year-old. Like literally, you could buy the startup materials for $300, buy all the chemicals, like have this. There's a guy on Twitter, Nick Huber. He has the idea of a sweaty startup, HVAC, you know, home organizing, painting business, like all this subset of businesses. Like if you start that business now as a young kid, instead of going to college, like you are in a much better financial position.
Imagine just like
and you learn
avoiding-
what happens, even if you fail.
Just avoid 6K of debt.
Just avoid debt.
Yeah, 6 figures of
6K?
debt. Sorry, 6 figures. Avoid 6 figures of debt. You're already ahead. Not to mention the earnings you're having over those 4 years.
Not to mention the fact that like your industry is going to be so in demand, and the supply is so limited.
No, I just had a what'd you call it? A
Business boner.
business gasm.
You
Yeah.
just had a
Yeah.
It's a
What
boner.
what's gonna get like
Yeah,
the
mine was a
most
full
demolished,
orgasm.
though?
Oh, you went.
Yeah,
You didn't just.
I went to completion.
All
So
right,
what was that?
all right, guys, put your business boners back.
Well,
in
I
your
want to
pants.
hear about his cock punch situation here.
No, hold on, you go.
You go.
I'm trying to think. Like, some of these industries are just going to be total. Like imagine legal comes to mind. Like there are people who have like entry level jobs in like law firms, or they have law degrees. Like and they just sit there, and they spend
Years,
like
by the way.
12 hours a day just reading stuff for years, right?
Yes.
And the entirety of like their 5 years as like a junior person could probably be done by this thing in like an hour.
You upload
Like, just
all
It's
the
not
information.
even
The entirety of their
It's
5
not
years
even
of
an
stuff.
hour. It's now. It's
Upload
like
the
instant.
inputs.
Five years, I don't know. That's a lot of.
So you know what's
I'm giving
interesting?
it the
Sure.
When I
benefit of
uploaded
doubt.
the 8-page article, it did take some time.
Yeah.
It took it 20 seconds, where normally it's instant. It starts writing it,
with
but
a
it was
basic
like
prompt.
it was like
Okay.
clearly reading it.
Fair.
But still,
Oh my God!
But that will
Imagine just like
improve.
solving a case.
These
Hey,
are all improvements.
upload the entire legal book and be like, hey, based on these inputs,
Supreme Court
what's the
decisions. Yeah.
outcome
No, but-
of this case?
But what's most important here to realize about like this system as a whole is that it's trained on the data that it receives, and
Yeah.
the whole reason that this is right now available for free is because we're providing feedback. This is a beta, right? That's why there's no.
Yeah.
This is a beta. So like we will get to a point where this
hold on.
model will change.
how
the
much
business model will change.
how much would you pay Nick for this product?
well, so I was thinking like 2 cents a query. Like, does 2 cents a query back out? If I want to create Google V2, and all I did was give it a search box and this thing in the background.
Yeah, like a
could,
better search.
Could I make
results.
money? I think so. At 2 cents, it's kind of
course
questionable.
you do. You just said you saved 20 minutes of your time with 2 pennies.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about Google's business model. Can I,
Can we talk about that?
They only
Let's
click
start
ads.
talking
Like,
about this Google killer idea.
all right,
A
like
Google killer. Wow.
like okay, let's say we did the left curve thing and we just set up like a schmoogle and we put in this is the back end and it just gives responses and then we do the same business
we were
model.
talking about buying Ask Jeeves and just plugging this.
Yeah,
in
I was
the
like,
back.
this is perfect for Ask
That'd be
Jeeves. Ask
sick.
Jeeves.
That'd be so sick.
Bring
the
him back.
retro just
Jeeves
vibe.
is back. He's still got his little butler thing, but he's
Oh,
like
yeah.
ripped underneath.
But now
it.
he's smarter.
He's like a cyborg
He's smarter now. And he can reply to you. And you use the same business model. You
The
put
whole
some
reason
search
you
ads.
go to Google in the first place is not for the abundance of information. It's for the answer.
the answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
And like, let's not be like dumb about this. I mean, like Google clearly has been working on this. They have that
they have their
Lambda
own
project that we
thing.
were talking
And
about.
by the
one
way,
episode.
like,
He's
if
talking
you're
about their thing being sentient.
if you're
like 2
having
months
a,
ago.
if you're having a chat experience with ChatGPT or whatever it will be called in the future, there's no room for advertisements
Wait, hold on.
to come and have placement.
yeah,
at the
imagine
top
a
of
link to
Google.
like some random
No.
article when you give
So
them.
it usurps that and basically makes
just
that obsolete
Kills
in one
the internet business.
boom. Gone.
Or it just
Gone.
knows
It's scary.
When
So
Nick
what's
is looking
Google
for his
doing?
travel
That's-
prompts, it's like, so would you like to book a reservation here on OpenTable?
yes,
What's
exactly.
scary is it also makes every blog obsolete because it's ultimately
It's an input.
capturing and
Yeah.
indexing
Yeah.
all that as information.
It's an input.
So it doesn't take away the need for the input, but because we need the input.
But
That's the human element.
Right, but it takes away the need for the blog.
Yeah, let's not forget this is artificial intelligence.
Does-
It's based on the information that human beings have
So does-
curated and created
does-
and provided
Does
as an
that
input.
business model ultimately license the input data from the
Great
creator?
Okay. So Armand brought this up. You brought up a good point. You were like, well, because I mean, you're obviously very familiar with AI. He said Sam Altman says there's only two things. Once this model becomes commoditized, there's only two things that differentiate yourself. One is, do you have a proprietary data input? And two, what is the product? What is the UI? What is the UX user experience? Is yours better than the other ones? And like when we're talking about, does this kill Google? Well, like Google has a fuck ton of data. So does Facebook. So does Amazon. And they have proprietary data sources that they can input into this, let's call it a potential generalized AI.
Right, particularly if it's
They're
open
fine.
source. Like
They're just fine.
They're,
They're
gonna
going to
rip
be
it.
all right.
Yeah. But I also think it kind of distributes it messes up the power law here where like the four of us could also, start a potentially competing one. And maybe we don't have the data, but maybe the UI, the product, the features, the way you
The way
interact
you
with
interact with the data for sure.
is better.
So what's
Potentially.
really interesting to me in the AI problem and the future of how this plays out, the number one concern, the number one existential threat is we have essentially an AI arms race happening, right? And OpenAI came out and said, here's what we got. This is our best fucking thing that we've delivered yet. And we're going to make it available for you to test and give us feedback on. Also, because we're OpenAI, we're going to make this available to some degree, most likely free or abundantly and open for you to build on, right? I don't know why you're laughing.
No, I just had this like crazy visual on like how my version of Google is going to beat everybody's. It's like
Have you seen a Hot Tub Time Machine, by the way?
I'm certain. I'm
Fastest left turn I've ever seen in this podcast.
I'm sorry. I was laughing to myself because I know that I'm going to create this thing where it's like, oh,
You're
gonna-
that guy.
You're going to search my query and like I'm going to get you a hand job while you search. Like I'm just positive of it. Like, yeah, you use mine. Here's
You're
your
gonna
hand
get a
job.
back page as a result. Like, what do you mean?
No. It's
Steven
like
is dumbfounded
no,
right
it's
now.
going to be like this physical like AI model that like just put your like stand here, and then enter your query, and you get a fucking hand job while you search.
How did you go there?
No, I
And then you combine your Elon Tesla bot with
I just
Something did
I
that
just
for
knew
you.
to me that this is where it's going. It's
Okay.
like use mine, you get a hand job.
Okay, so that's where yours went.
So Eric's theory
And
is
I
that
wanna
everything converges onto.
I want to
porn
go back.
jobs.
I want to go back to this, please.
I don't even remember what you were talking about
Okay,
anymore.
well, I'll provide some. Look, AI arms race privatization
Arms
of
race?
AI. Oh, that was probably what did it. He was just like, arm race. And just imagine that. So, dude.
Lay down.
Everyone calm down.
Lay down while you search.
Everyone calm down. So this privatization, this desire to keep the information and the technology proprietary is a problem, right? Because the number one problem we have is like Pandora's box is open, things are moving, and we don't know how they're going to evolve. AI and technology itself is a one-way road that will continue evolving, and we don't know to what degree we'll be able to control it, because especially when it becomes competitive, right? When you have Google and Microsoft and OpenAI and whoever else competing in this arena, you're going to have like a Cold War type of situation. So you want to prevent that. How do you prevent that? And if you don't prevent that, what happens? If you don't prevent that, you have a bunch of competing groups of people hiding proprietary information and a lack of regulation and consistent frameworks of like, how do we make sure that this does not become Terminator 3?
I mean, would you ascribe to the idea of exclusive rights, like on your particular data? Like, because I think that's fair. Like, you'd want a license. You'd want a license to like, hey, I'll just use AWS's version of this.
Wouldn't it be better if Google's data was closed? Because if it was open, wouldn't the Chinese just use it to piggyback and destroy us with their evil weapons?
These are the questions. That's a great question. And I think that I think what I love about ChatGPT and OpenAI as a whole is that they are providing the infrastructure for billion and trillion-dollar companies to be built upon. Google is a trillion-dollar company. Sam Altman said, and I tend to agree with him, that the next trillion-dollar companies will likely be built on top of OpenAI.
Okay. So
that's wonderful, but
so
how does this evolve?
So
because most likely people are going to want to be like, well, I have something proprietary versus you, and I don't want you to have that.
Yeah.
So Google has to do something. What are they going to do when ChatGPT can answer every question other than like, you know?
I mean, I think we
What is
kind of
heaven?
experienced this already before, where like we found out that China could manufacture goods faster, cheaper, more efficiently, and maybe have like some additional expertise that maybe we didn't have at home, and it created this like GDP explosion. Right, there was like billions and trillions of dollars of like per capita economic activity happening off of this like new founding like conclusion, except it didn't happen in the United States, and there was economic displacement in the United States. You know, the people in the United States got really cheap $500 flat screen TVs, but the economic activity happened elsewhere. And so what I worry about, what I think about, and we're starting to get into the second order consequences of this thing, is let's say a company can generate be a $100 billion company, a $1 trillion company. But what happens if it displaces 10, 20 million people out of economic opportunity? How do we handle that as a society?
The hope would be that you are displacing people at a rate that is exceeded by the gains in productivity, right? Like if you imagine this to the infinite degree, and like you just invented AI and it was just like, oh, I figured out how to synthesize matter out of thin air. So everybody has food, everybody has infinite everything. You all can just sit home and play guitar. You don't have jobs, but everybody has everything.
Yeah,
for free.
but under that scenario, you need UBI to exist.
Well, so I agree with what you said.
Wait, why would you need UBI to exist? You only need you only need UBI to exist if the rate of progress of productivity it's fast enough to displace people from jobs, but not enough to deliver them enough abundance to where they don't need the job.
This is something I think we get wrong.
Why do you need a job in a world where AI
is
has created like the Star Trek replicator, where anybody can just create anything out of thin air? They have
but
infinite
you're talking
food
about
and
productivity broadly, not talking about productivity at an individual level.
Exactly. So I think this argument works in the aggregate. It fails when you're talking about like a small community or like an individual person. Like in aggregate, outsourcing and globalization like lifted 1 billion people out of poverty, but it did suck for
Displace
30 million people
But
in the
that's
United
because
States.
it wasn't efficient enough. It wasn't abundant enough. It created aggregate gains in productivity, but not to like you can imagine a gain in productivity that is so massive that nobody even has to work at all because everything is.
No, it's about the distribution of the gains. The gains weren't evenly distributed.
No. Like the whole reason people need to work and acquire stuff in the first place is because there are scarce resources that people have to work, gain money, and then exchange the money for the scarce resources, right? In a world of infinite abundance where people can have their baseline stuff to survive, maybe people don't need to work, and maybe people only work to get to another baseline level that's like beyond that. But like I'm just wondering, like, can you envision a world where this stuff is so advanced that it creates such infinite abundance at like the bottom layer of like the hierarchy of needs that we don't have to worry about job displacement because people don't need the jobs because they don't need the money because they don't need to buy the stuff?
I get you. That's not how I view this advancement to look. I view it to be like a widening of the wealth gap. Like the people that benefit from this are extremely benefited, like beyond what we already feel.
How do you?
I would argue the opposite.
How do you guys feel or think this is different from everything that has ever happened before this moment?
You're saying there's always been displacement to some level. Like whenever there's been innovation, there's been
Absolutely. Are we at a point in the curve where it's so exponential that we will not be able to provide the level of productivity and gains necessary to Steven's point, or is this the same as it's always been?
Okay, so if I were to argue the other side of it, it would be like the in real life meat space version where like the people are doing the meat space jobs, like the house cleaning, the like the trades
Roofing.
roofing job, like all the trades, and those folks sort of like rise. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that it offsets like the complete, like what Nick is describing right now unleashes him to infinity.
Right.
And like
at the same time as the labor force.
Right. Like maybe the labor force goes like 1 or 2x and Nick is at infinity.
Right.
And like I don't think that Steven is comprehending
but Nick
that
specifically.
What gap and what though?
Yeah. But Nick specifically, like
the person
yes.
behind the enterprise is in a position to succeed unlike no other.
To a level that they've never even comprehended.
Fortunately and unfortunately, and we are in a privileged position. Like we here are in a position.
All of us.
Wow. Like
okay, so
we will use this to.
And my supposition, just to be clear, is that infinite abundance for few will have to be redistributed to the many who do not participate.
Well said.
Why is it infinite abundance for few though? Like
it just is
I think
the
it's
nature
a position.
of things.
it's not. I would argue that if you follow technological advances through time, right, they have increased abundance dramatically for the bottom rung. And it's important to differentiate between wealth gap and like the sort of livability of the bottom rung of the ladder. It may very well be the case that Eric is right, that this ultimately provides like an enormous wealth gap. But if the gap is huge, but the quality of life for the bottom tier is risen up so high, does that gap even matter?
Right. But if they're, yes, your point is well taken. Like at the end of the day, if the bottom tier is risen substantially,
Will
like,
it force more people to go into the arenas that we discussed?
The word is sufficiently. If it's written sufficiently, then no. But
I
what
could see
we've
it being a world where you have the people that dictate how things move.
Hold on, based on what you've seen in the last 2 centuries, like do you really believe this to be the case, or is this you just being contrarian? Because like honestly, there's no narrowing of the wealth gap.
Let me ask you an analog. So do you remember when the internet was just invented, right?
Yes.
Do you think the creation of Stripe, of Shopify, of WordPress, of all of these, of Alibaba, do you think that technology expanded the gap of people using the internet, or do you think it made it actually more accessible for a wider swath of people?
It's a difficult question because obviously the gap has widened over that time, but like the direct correlation is much harder to nail down. I'm unsure.
Like, I would argue there's a lot of instances of technology making things more accessible. I think this is like, I like music, as you know. I think that technology has made music like super accessible to people. Like, you can now get access to the type of like production tools that in like the early 90s would have cost you like hundreds of thousands of dollars to assemble in a studio for like $20 now, like on your phone.
I'll rescind my previous statement. I'm very clear in my mind that like the owners of capital have like outpaced labor by order of magnitude, and there's no question in my mind. And this will magnify that result.
I would argue that this is simply an arbitraging of like human labor. This is going to like transcend all of humanity, right? You're stepping outside of humanity at this point. Whereas like the sort of last 2 decades has been this sort of like small like arbitrage play. Like, oh, a person in this instance, I can pay them 20% less. This is like a orders of magnitude thing that like it's like a 0 to 1 move, right? Like, we're stepping outside of human labor now. We're trying to figure out how to make sense of it, but this isn't like an arbitrage play anymore. You're not like pitting one person in this geographic location against one person. in this
So
one,
just
right?
to be clear, your argument is that the wealth gap will narrow.
No, I'm arguing that the bottom rung of the ladder will have like a better life, even if the gap. I think predicting if the gap expands is sort of irrelevant. I don't have like a strong conviction on that, but I think that
It's not
the bottom
irrelevant
rung
though.
will have a.
It is not irrelevant.
Why is it not irrelevant?
Well, because we have politicians and mainstream media that use it to poke.
No. The reason
use it
why
to prod and poke and
whenever
incite.
when everybody talks about the wealth gap, it's a proxy for something that isn't the wealth gap, which is why it irks me. People aren't mad that they're unequal. They're mad that they're unequal and they can't have stuff that they feel like they should have.
So
like, and they're putting the thing at the foot of like a inequality.
So you're
But
saying
it's not
that
exactly
if people
that.
at the bottom were okay and had everything they needed, there would be no grievances.
There would be dramatically fewer grievances. Like, I think the grievances exist because people can't have the stuff that they need to live a good life, not because people are dramatically richer.
So
than
that if
them.
we
And there's a
all
correlation.
rise, there would
Yeah.
be less issues than most people imagine.
That's a fair statement, but I also think it's wrong. I think I can call it fair, but I can also disagree with you.
So you think if everybody had everything they needed, but there existed trillionaires, there would be societal unrest still?
Yes. Like, and dramatic, like in a more dramatic way than we experience now.
I couldn't disagree with
Think
that
about
more.
how much personal development it takes and awareness to be like, that person has more than I do, but you know
By
what?
that much.
I'm grateful for what I have because, like, you
But
know,
people-
100 years ago, things were a lot harder for someone like me. I don't.
People aren't mad because they have more. They're mad because I can't afford to feed my kid. I can't afford to buy a good house.
But
I can't
that
afford this stuff.
that line moves with time. Like, they can't afford to feed my kid
I wanna
because
understand something.
I can't afford a home that I own. Like,
But they are paying for an iPhone. They are paying
I want to
for,
understand something. What allows the bottom rung of society to rise given this exponential increase in like people being in the positions that we're talking about? Is it that all those people, like, where do you imagine these people being, Stephen? Are these all people that move into these tradeswoman fields that we're talking about, and they're in a position where they're earning, based on like, let's say today's wages, $100,000 a year, they're fully good, they have everything they need, and there's no grievances? Like, who are we talking about here?
good question.
I think there's going to, like, this isn't going to be just like a step function where we wake up. Like, there's going to be a transition period. Like, humans are sort of sticky in a sense, in that we live these sort of generational lives that span decades. A human who has lived 50 years and learned certain things is just the way they are, and we can't discard them, and we also can't just expect them to change, right? So society has to make some sort of, consolations for these people to get from A to B, because we can't just kick them to the curb, even
We
if
have to
society
help
is.
them get there, right? Because
I
we're
agree-
looking
I
at
agree
this
with that,
right now.
yes.
I have no idea what to call it. Let's call it 20% of society is not producing to the level that is necessary that they could make a great living for themselves, right? And are we arguing that all of these people, the entire bottom rung of society, will be at a level that is satisfactory, that they would earn enough money and produce enough for society that there would be no grievances they have toward the trillionaires that exist in society at the same time?
I'm talking about the end game of all this. I think the end game
So
of all
am
this.
I.
This
I'm
isn't,
also
this
going
isn't
toward
10
end game.
years
I'm
from
also
now.
trying to
This
go-
isn't 20 years from now. This might be 200 years from now.
Oh, Jesus.
I think the
Okay.
end game, if you follow all of the AI stuff and all of the stuff down the rabbit hole, what we're all trying to get to is like abundance. Like a lot of the problems of humanity are rooted in scarcity or perceived scarcity or some sort of scarcity, right? Like a limited amount of resources, because there's finite amounts of resources, it costs particular money to extract those resources. Like people like have to work. A lot of this is rooted in that. In a world where an AI can just build robots that build themselves and synthesize chemicals out of thin air and just create like everything.
See, I can't do 200 years, because if we're going to experience a
like,
singularity in the
I'm
2040s,
just
I
using
don't
this
even
to
know. I
illustrate
get
a
it. I
point.
get it.
I want
but
to
like-
do the 200 years, and what I would suggest here, and this is just me walking through the scenarios. So my thought is, like, the scarcity is in quotes, right? Scarcity is in quotes because it's relative. Like, we don't know the scarcity that our ancestors felt. We have no idea. Scarcity in 200 years is going to look like prosperity now. I am under that impression. So, like, in 200 years, if you agree that the wealth gap will widen, which I believe it will, I think you're agreeing with that. You're just saying that it won't matter. I'm going to say,
I don't know if I agree, but I find it plausible.
okay, let's just use that scenario as my thesis. The wealth gap widens. Like the overall pie is going to grow, but the allocation of that pie will always be bickered over, right? Always.
I don't necessarily think so.
No, okay, so I'll just assume that that pie is always bickered over, because like naturally I think people bicker over the allocation of the pie. If that pie grows so much that like the top 1% are enjoying too much of that pie, then the bottom percent, no matter how good they're feeling about their life, they're going to want more. And I think this is just human. I think this is like the human existence, and that human existence will lead to infighting. Like and if the wealth gap widens, it'll be even more dramatic. And it doesn't matter that their quality of life has risen by even 200%. Like that infighting will get much more intense. Like and I can't reason that I'm wrong on this. Like,
I just don't see a world where I have food, I have all the things to make my life good, my kids are healthy, I'm happy, I can afford everything, I have time to spend with my family, but like I'm going to like pick up an axe and like revolution because somebody just has more.
You're using a heuristic based on today's world to say like what would be acceptable, when the term acceptable is always relative. Like
I think a different way to put this is like when you're looking at social media, what is the number one feeling you experience? Most people, average person, envy, jealousy. If you took that and you 10x'd it, I could absolutely follow Eric's line of thinking that like most people would not accept that.
And
they would just be like, this is not okay.
And just to be
that
clear,
some people
like,
live this way and I live this way.
just to be clear to listeners, because like you guys know me, I'm the most Republican of all four of us. Like that's where I landed on the little plot line. Like, but I have gotten way more open to the notion that like prosperity has not trickled down equally, or even like not equally is not even the right word. Prosperity has not trickled down at all
enough
to sufficiently to those at the bottom. And if the wealth gap widens, then in my opinion, UBI is the only solution to that. And I don't like I'm the most Republican of all of us. I don't like that as a solution. I'm looking at this as the only realistic outcome.
Well, all right. I don't want to get into you by ag
Yeah, you can say
because I
things. Go for
started.
it.
No,
Yeah.
I started.
I mean, I think
started.
I think we should avoid going too much into UBI because I want to do a
UBI
whole
could be a
episode
great
on it.
episode.
I think it would be
UBI
fun.
UBI would
I
be
do
good.
want to switch our topic at some point. So if we have any last, I want to switch it around education. I want to take a little left turn.
Just turn the wheel.
Okay. I think we said enough about this topic. We got our arguments out there.
I love this episode. Just keep going.
Okay.
This is a 3 hour.
So one part that I find really fascinating, but the second order consequences are like really troubling, is education. Okay, so we've established that like if a professor, whether it's in 6th grade or high school or graduate level economics, gives a take-home assignment, this AI will literally do that homework probably just as good and just as fast as any A student can take it. So my question is, how does education change when you cannot give your children, your students, any take-home assignments? Like this is like getting fascinating to me. And there's like this one argument which is like, well, we have a calculator now. You don't need to learn math in school when you have this calculator, which
this
will
is such a great question, man.
teach you math. Like you don't need to, learn, I don't know, how to write long essays if you can just prompt an AI and it'll get you the proper paragraph structure for it. Like, and this starts to like build upon itself. So
Well,
what does it look
let's
like?
go to the root of the matter. What does it exist for in the first place? It exists to provide a training for the work that you'll do in your future and to give you a basic level of knowledge to be a decent functioning citizen in the world. The university system that exists today, its ethos is to provide that. Like that's the goal.
I don't think that
at the
that
end of
is.
the day.
I don't think that is the goal.
That's
but
not what it actually accomplishes.
I
But
would-
the goal is to provide training for the real world.
I would argue that the first principle is to impart understanding of topics. How you
in a
apply
specialized way.
how you apply those topics to be productive is not actually the goal, because if it was, then everything would be a trade, and it's not.
But at the end of the day, you go to the university for the certification in order to get the job and perform the function in
But that's
society.
like a second order. That's actually not the way that we teach people.
No, sorry, but that's my point. That's my point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
What is the trade you're making versus what people are getting?
Right.
So the first part is broken in the first place, is what I'm trying to say.
Agreed, but like there is something it does teach you, which is how to work, how to solve problems, how to research, like how you go about it. May also teach you work ethic. Like overloading people in high school with a fuck ton of work teaches them a work ethic, and like
It does.
so are those
it's a
important
plus.
anymore?
No, like how many of you guys, like if the world ended tomorrow, would be able to make this glass?
0.
Zero. We wouldn't be able to. I can't explain how this mic works. None of us can create
All of this
Everything we
is a
have is
gift.
built upon. Like we have all this complexity that's abstracted away from us, and then we use that free brain power to just iterate on the next thing. Like if we were in school, and like we had to be like, here's a pencil, write something, and somebody's like, what? How do you make a wait? Was a pen? And you had to explain every little thing that exists. Like you would just never get anywhere. You would never learn anything. So everything we learn is like implicitly built upon all the stuff that we've already taken as a given and chunked together as given knowledge and abstracted away. So this is just like another iteration of that. And it's totally fine because the point of learning stuff in school isn't to learn how to write cursive. It's like Armand's point, like why did we learn that in the first place? A lot of what we learn, if we trace it back, it goes ultimately to like what can let us thrive and like be like economically viable, or what can let us like pursue art or like sort of understand the world, right? There's like these sort of like 3 things you go into, I think, which are just sort of like survive and thrive, art, discover like the nature of like the universe. Maybe you could throw like charity in there or something, but those are kind of the quadrants, and everything sort of like I feel like fits into that. And it's not important like the nuances of like, can we still do long division? Like who cares? We abstract it away. Like writing term papers is going to be like a thing that nobody cares about a century from now. We just won't.
So, I mean, I did think of a scenario. Is like if you think about the amount of people who are able to work on, I don't know, life-saving drugs? It's a very few. Because think about it, you have to go through 4 levels of undergraduate, graduate, PhD. Like it requires a lot of very specific knowledge. But if you can abstract away, as you're saying, a lot of that knowledge, maybe there's more people that could work on that type of
Definitely.
And this,
and maybe that I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
that's more abundant for humanity as a whole.
This is the
Definitely,
point I wanted to
especially
talk to you
when-
about, like what something you were saying, where we were talking about like displacing jobs and everything. Like, it's not a one-way street. Like, how many people would be able to create a website to sell their product right now if all they had to do is say their idea into a machine and it created it? There's
And
be a lot
everything
of people.
happened for you: production, manufacturing, supply
Yeah.
chain, marketing, website design, everything.
Yeah,
it just
maybe,
happened
maybe
for
this
you.
brings more people into the fold. Maybe it's not
course.
more isolating. Maybe it just breaks
But it
down
can only
all the
bring
barriers.
people into a certain degree before demand.
You still have to be like a
becomes-
creative human, right?
Yes.
At a certain point in time, like
And
what
the
are
best
you
will
even?
succeed.
And that's
know?
my point, is that brings some people up from the dregs to the top, but then there's a huge gap in between that, and an even widening gap in between that.
Yeah. I just think we continue to do this thing where we position AI as this like very external force that is just a part of our lives that we have to figure out how to work with. And we don't realize that it's very much part of us from a basic fundamental level. Like if we learn to work with this thing and allow it to accentuate our intelligence, I think we can go so much further. And the biggest concerns are, back to like one of the points I was previously making, is like, well, what's going to happen when these different firms and these different groups and these different think tanks and these different corporations actually come together and say like, okay, we're all developing artificial intelligence. We all want to work to the point where we have this like general intelligence. General intelligence meaning to the level of a human being that can create a symphony like Beethoven, like Stephen's goat. Like imagine that was possible, and it will happen in a very short period of time. Once that happens, what will we do with that, and how will we make it a part of our lives? And I think that we still try to utilize it as this like very separate thing. And the more that we actually integrate it into the individual's existence and say like, every single human being, regardless of the class of work that they want to go into, is going to be able to utilize this, we won't necessarily have this problem of like what's going to happen to society.
Well, something you said there is actually at the root of like my biggest worry. Like we've been talking about like, oh, it's going to cause these economic
I'm curious what your
displacements,
guys' biggest worries
wealth,
are.
to me, like this is just a one-way road to like abundance if we use it properly. And like
If we use it
what
properly.
I am worried about is it like destroying something at the essence of like what it means to be human. Like right now we're like, oh, it's so cute, it can write a limerick. Oh,
Right.
it's so cute, it can write a song in the style of Taylor Swift. What happens when we give it like feed it the entire Mr. Beast catalog and we're like, make Mr. Beast videos? And it just starts making Mr. Beast videos.
Better
It just
than
makes
Mr. Beast?
Yeah, that's better than Mr. Beast. It's more engaging. Everybody's like, ha ha ha. And then we give it like art and we're like, make art, write music. And then we give it 100 episodes of this podcast. Like we've already seen that AI generated
Joe Rogan-
podcast with Joe Rogan and Steve Jobs that never
Yeah.
happened. What if we just feed it this pod and it
By
just
the way,
starts producing
it was
it?
very good.
It was. But
I
then
actually felt like I got to know Steve Jobs on a new level.
But it gets to this level. Like, if everybody listens to our podcast and it feels exactly like us,
What will
and
we be?
But it's not really us. Like, what does that look like? What if it feels like we're crossing some sort of chasm there, and
This is why I believe in integrating as early as possible. That's what I'm trying to ultimately express. We need to integrate with
But
this
how can
technology and
Mr.
make it a part of
Beast
ourselves.
integrate the technology in a way where it ultimately doesn't just replace even him. Like what does it mean to do
I
that as a
can't
human?
argue that it won't ultimately become intelligent enough to try to usurp him and his purpose of in human form in the first place. I can't. But I can be hopeful that if he integrates as early as possible, that the AI will be reliant on him to exist to a certain degree, that there will always be a relationship between the two. That's what we should hope for. We should hope for a relationship between the two where we can merge. Because if we don't merge, it's over. Like there's no
every-
reason for human beings to exist, is what you just highlighted.
Well, I don't want to go that far, but
No,
like
you
I
did.
do feel like
you did just say that.
it's an existential question. Like, why do we exist? Like, if we can't even create art anymore, right?
If
like,
you have a
that's, like,
flesh
the
that
last-
dies in 80 years,
we can't just
in
be
90
like
years,
little collections of carbon.
and
know?
you have a brain that is in like subservient and not even as close to the level of intelligence as AI will be in 5 to 10 years, then why would there be a reason for your existence?
Can we just explore the Mr. Beast thing specifically a little
Yes.
bit? Because I can envision a state where Mr. Beast keeps doing his thing, this tech gets really advanced, and somebody just starts a not Mr. Beast YouTube channel, and the whole channel is just using Mr. Beast content to generate new Mr. Beast videos that are increasingly more engaging and appealing to users. And maybe at some point, like some of the users are like, man, this is like everything I love about Mr. Beast, but it's like even better. It's like for some reason, even though I don't want to admit it, it's like 20% better. Is that the end state? Does every artist end up with like an AI version of itself, or people spitting out AI versions of that artist? Where does that go next, do you think? Like imagine Mr. Beast, now he's got an AI channel. What happens next?
I mean, that is another business channel, right? It's like
I don't know what you got over there on your chat.
Is that a whole
GPT,
industry?
Nick.
Nick's already like
I
business
thought
idea.
maybe
Rip off every existing YouTube
I
channel.
see some ChatGPT going off in the corner. I'm like,
He's just using this whole thing as like a brainstorming session.
Thank you, noted. I mean, I will say, like, what my hope for this group and our group of listeners is that, like, you know, whatever the societal impacts are, you use it to get the money. Because, like, our priority is to, like, take care of ourselves, take care of our families, and to provide that level of security for ourselves first. And so whether that's creating an AI startup like you are, whether that's starting a new business that, like, leverages technology, instead of hiring 10 people, you hire 2, or like whether you're using it to make more money more efficiently with your existing business, or you're just using it to get smarter. You're taking all the, having to synthesize information, like, use it to get the money. Like, that's the goal. Like, we can ponder these societal issues, but, like, we should use it to make money and secure the bag.
But
Like,
maybe
just-
the bag doesn't even matter 100
No, but,
years
like,
from now in a
just like
world
we
of infinite
also want the
abundance.
crypto community to develop in this, like, very benign, like, utopian way. We want decentralized everything. We want trustless everything. We want it to grow in the way that we want. But at the same time, we're here to, like, you know, provide and establish some kind of, like, financial goal first. And that, you know, I think that comes first. So, like, you know, this provides a lot of change, and, like, you can get caught up in it, or you can be like a shark who smells blood and be like, I'm going to be the fastest to that, and I'm going to secure, you know, financial security for me and my family first, and then, you know, my broader community, and then I can worry about those things. So I don't know if that's like a
No, I feel like you're right.
bad
I
take,
feel like,
but, like,
there's like a metaphorical gun that's been dropped into the middle of the floor, and we're like,
who's going to pick it up.
Everybody else just take UBI.
Yeah. But, like, you have a choice. It's like the change is happening, and which path will you take? Like, and I'm, you know, like, for my family, I'm going to take the path that's the fastest path to money.
I want to talk about this for like 5 more hours. The AI was right. We need to do a whole pod on this topic. That was the thing I went to. It was like, okay, I've created a whole pod for you on AI taking over the world.
Well, when you are ready, I did ask it to give a closing statement in the form of the saint.
Let's go.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
In the form of the King James Bible.
Oh,
Love it already.
Verily, verily, I say unto thee, blessed are the Alfalfa podcast group, for they are a lively and intelligent crew. Their discussions are filled with wit and with hue.
Lord, you're too kind.
May they continue to gather and share their thoughts and their insights so fair, for they bring joy and wisdom to all, and their community is a treasure to behold. So let us give thanks and praise to the Alfalfa podcast group. May they continue to grive and throw in this land where the alfalfa doth blow.
Oh.
Amen.
Amen.
Hey.
Amen, brother.
amen.
I wish it said doth grow instead of doth blow. I feel like that was an oversight on the AI's
Well,
part,
well,
but
the
it's still pretty good.
Yeah. Not
Being a
bad.
little bit of a nitpicker here.
Yeah, it was a grow. That was a clear oversight on the grow, but amen. Amen.
I have so much more to say about this.
Well, luckily
Can
for
we
you,
just
we're going to go
please
have some
have a podcast.
We should just
where
have
we
an AI
discuss-
month. We're just going to make it Just AI.
I do have one closing statement.
Yeah.
I think that, we very much started with like crypto roots in so many ways. And crypto is something that we're so passionate about on the money side. And I really do believe that crypto and AI are, they're symbiotic. They work together in such a beautiful way that we are yet to see. And I urge people to look at the ways in which they work together. And the difference that I see is that while crypto is an industry that you could like work in, AI what does that mean? Think of it like, don't forget what the word means. It means artificial intelligence, right? It's just intelligence. It's the intelligence of humanity, but the artificial form of it. What we will see as a result of that, we'll keep talking about here. And it will be an exploratory process of like figuring out how to place ourselves in society in a way where we can extract, I should say, as much capital as possible, to what you said, Nick. And it's very important to place yourself in that position of like maximum leverage. But AI to me is different from crypto in the sense that this is like the world in and of itself. This is the industry. It's not just like a component of the world that we live in. It's like you should probably consider what the world looks like in the future and how you can place yourself in an AI future. I don't know what that means for most people, but I think it means like thinking about your position in terms of work and what we've discussed today. And it's very important for people to marinate on more than they realize.
It just reminded me of my crypto AI stuff. We didn't even talk about any of it. I know.
Well,
We
next
won't.
week. Can we do it next week?
The life segment might have a series of this stuff because as it gets better.
Yeah, I've noticed that we've been doing this a lot in the life episode.
Well, much in the same way we
So-
talk about crypto a lot because we just think it's this big thing that's changing. Well, this is like another thing that's bigger, I would argue, than crypto.
It's bigger.
It warrants more
It's bigger.
than like one episode every 3 months. Like you could do like a daily pod on it. Like the
I
implications of
fundamentally
it
believe it's bigger.
are so enormous. The rate of change of it is insane. Like it really does deserve its own thing because it is so huge. I mean, we all realized that this week. I think especially we were like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
This was the first time also, we didn't really say this, that like AI has been a dream for so long. And this was the first time that we really were like, damn, like it's here. It's here.
Real aha
It's real.
moment.
So love you guys.
Amen to thee.
That was amazing that we opened and ended with OpenAI.
That was appropriate.
Yeah, I was bummed Armand kept saying stuff because I wanted to just say like amen at the end of the pod.
I don't take any of it back. I don't take any of it back.
Armand.
All right, everyone, just ignore what Steven said. Bye.
Bye. Love you guys.
Bye.